Hello and welcome to the Irish NFL show preview of all of Week 12 Sunday action. My name is Shane Brennan and tonight I am joined by the motley duo of Brian O'Leary and Kieran Boyle as we give a quick spin through all that we can expect to happen over the next couple of days of football. I'd like to remind everybody that the Irish NFL show game preview show is brought to you by QuickBet. And for everyone who's listening, to please hit our like and subscribe button wherever you're listening to us. If you are enjoying the show, make sure you share our feeds on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Might even set up a Blue Sky during the week the way things are going. Who knows? We're all over the place. And if you like what we do, please tell a friend. It really does help us out. A couple of things to call out before we get into business. Firstly, we are a week away from Thanksgiving. So if you're not at home cooking the turkey, I would invite everybody to come and meet us in Buskers on the Ball as we are meeting up to watch a couple of the Thanksgiving games between the Lions and the Bears and between the Giants and the Cowboys. It is free in. There's no tickets. There's no expectations for you to come in. You can come and go as you please. €60 points all night and we will be there. And I imagine there will be a certain Bears fan and a certain Giants fan probably complaining about the way that the games are going. But if you want to come and say hello, have a bit of crack, please come in. And as well as that, there is also a Jets watch party that we are involved with too on Sunday, the 8th of December. Details of that can be found on our social media page. Before we get into talk about Sunday's games, I'd like to remind everyone as well that the Thursday Night Football preview podcast with Brian and Kieran O'Donovan on the AFC North clash tonight between the Browns and the Steelers is in your feeds now. But as for this Sunday, we are looking ahead towards 7 6 o'clock games, 3 games in the late window, Sunday Night Football, and tonight we will touch on the Monday Night Har Bowl as well. But before we get into some of the meteor clashes, guys, I know I'm sitting here beside two Giants fans, so I'm going to get the Giants out of the way first. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New York Giants. Weird battle between two teams who are coming off bye weeks. The Bucs, I think, are still in a battle for their division. The Giants, probably not so much. They are in a battle for entertainment and getting bums on seats with Tommy DeVito now coming in as a starting quarterback, although as both of you alluded to during the week, you feel like that Tommy DeVito was actually the best person over Drew Lock to give the Giants a real chance to win. And Brian, with Tommy DeVito back in, we saw it a couple of times last year when he was a quarterback. There was a bit of a spark. The Giants managed to find a couple of things. It didn't last long, but when it came good, it was pretty spectacular. Can we expect something similar from New York this weekend?
I think the teams in which he played against last year, maybe with the exception of the Packers, weren't at the level in which this Tampa Bay Bucs team are. I mean, the Bucs are 4-6 and the Giants 2-8. You could look at it on paper and say, oh, they're only 2 games out of that particular team. But these two teams for me, are going in very different directions. I think the Bucs' record probably doesn't do them justice. The 2 games in the lead up to the bye week, they played the Chiefs in overtime, forced them to come out the right side of that, and then had another difficult loss against another team that's in the lead up to the playoffs. Look, the Giants had a lot of teams come on this week. Tommy DeVito, his press conference yesterday was chaos. If you saw the photographs on social, the amount of people that were clamoring around him, we saw. Whilst he's doing that, Drew Lock is essentially on the other side with a very disgruntled face on him because he's thinking, I was brought in here to be a backup. Now it's my time and I don't get the opportunity. And then there's a disgruntlement with fans because why are we paying the guy $5 million to bring him in to be a backup? Surely that $5 million could have went elsewhere and not necessarily relying on the information from the Saquon Barkley deal, but there was other holes in the team that could have been filled rather than giving it $5 million to a quarterback that says he probably is never going to even play if Tommy DeVito plays at a certain level that's good enough for the remainder of the season. And even in the last era, Daniel Jones has come out with, for me and Kieran spoke about this, looks like a closure statement that he's probably going to be relieved of his duties next week and move on completely from the Giants. And so I can surround the possibility he pops up on another team before the end of the season. For this game, I think ultimately the better team will find a way to win. The Bucs have Mike Evans coming back this week, which is a huge player for them. Bearing in mind the losses that they've had in injuries, and yet they found a way to play really well over the course of the 2 weeks. I think the Giants initially might come out and play well. I think there'll be a lot of clamoring, and I think they might even find the end zone a little bit more than they have at home over the course of the season. But ultimately, Baker Mayfield, for me, is playing at an even a better level than what we've seen him previously with the Bucs. And I think the Bucs will eventually get past all the craziness that comes with the Tommy DeVito performance and ultimately find a way to get a victory. I don't think it'll be pretty. I think the line with QuickBet is around 5.5. I'm not entirely sure even if they'll cover it, but I think it'll be a close game. But ultimately, I think the better team wins in the end.
Kieran, we say that the better team wins. I know after the Giants are coming into this after losing 5 games, and I think the loss in Munich is probably demoralizing. But the Buccaneers have lost 4 games before they came into the bye week as well. Now, granted, I think as Brian alluded to, 2 of those were in overtime. 1 to the Falcons on Thursday night, 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs. But when you're looking at this team, and we know that there's Baker Mayfield, and we know that there's offensive talent there, but the ability to finish off games, the ability to take control is something which I think has been lacking from the Buccaneers, certainly over the last 2 weeks. And when you look at what the Giants have on defense, especially when you're playing up against players like Dexter Lawrence, you have to wonder whether this may be a bit of a banana skin for Tampa Bay.
I mean, that is one possibility, but we always talk about you are what your record says you are, but in this case, I don't think the Bucs are exactly a classic 4-16. They've been so close, and Baker's kept that ship afloat despite losing Evans and Mike Godwin. He's leaned on that run game, but for me, it's a game that I definitely see a bump up. Like Brian said, I see a bit of a bump from the Giants offensively. I don't see the home stretch going as bad as it's been this season. I definitely see, like we've seen in the past this season with Andy Dalton and with coach changes, I can see a bump. I can see a little injection of energy. I can see DeVito throwing the ball all over the place. I can see Neighbors having a nice little game. And I think the Giants will keep it fairly close up until the third quarter. But again, this is we kind of might look past it a little bit. This is a game the Bucs absolutely have to have. I mean, they can't let Atlanta get any further ahead than they are right now. And for them to get to 5-6 would be huge in that division. And I think obviously there's a lot at stake in all NFL games. But right now, the Bucs have a lot more to lose than the Giants have at this stage. The Giants' season's already done. The Bucs are, they can feel a little bit hard done by being 4-6 and some of those very close losses. But I love Baker. I love what he's been doing. I love that he's been able to absorb a lot of the blows, and that run game has been underrated too with the Bucs. Rashad White and Bucky Irving, they've been not single-handedly keeping it going, but they've been a huge part of that offense. The Giants can't stop the run, and I expect a large amount of the run game of Rashad White and Bucky probably to have combined about 150 yards, maybe a little bit more than that. I do expect it to be probably a touchdown in the end. And like I said, I think the Giants will keep pace with them for a little bit, but the Giants, we all know the Giants' issues on offense in the red zone and converting on the red zone. But the Bucs, I think they convert on 68% of third downs as well. So everything points in the favor of the Bucs. Another day I might pick the Giants for a surprise, but I think the fact that the Bucs are kind of trying to grab at the heels of the Falcons and they desperately need this win. The weather should be pretty good at MetLife. I'll check the weather forecast. Looks sunny in mid-50s, so they won't be too put out. It's not going to be like a crazy MetLife weather day. So I think with all that said, I like the Bucs by a touchdown, but fairly close in the fourth quarter till they pull out.
I'll be honest. I think something about the Sopranos' nature has kind of got into my head. I've actually picked the Giants to win this one, and it's only because I think that there's something about the morale boost that comes with the quarterback change that might make other players who are playing for their jobs play that little bit better against a team in Buccaneers who I think are liable for some sort of fourth quarter collapse, and then for the rest of the season to be poor from the Giants. But I don't know. I do understand that some of my picks are sort of purposefully crazy, and that one is definitely one I am picking because if crazy things happen in the NFL, MetLife Stadium is the place to look at it. But in terms of crazy things happen in the NFL, one of the crazier aspects of this year is the fact that for the first time in history, the Detroit Lions are the Super Bowl favorites, according to Las Vegas. That has never happened in franchise history. And look, they've earned every single bit of that. You look at everything that they've put together, and now they're playing against the Indianapolis Colts, a team who has had its own fair share of overhaul, of turmoil, especially when it comes to the quarterback position. And it's interesting when you look at the record that the Lions have had against AFC South opponents. They've played against the Jags, where they scored 52 points. They played against the Titans, where they scored 52 points. And they played against the Texans, where even though Goff let the ball be turned over 5 times, they still managed to find a way to pull out a victory. And Kieran, when you look at this matchup here, the fact that it's in Indianapolis, I don't really think makes it a massive home field advantage. These Lions are an exceptionally strong team. They're 7.5-point favorites going into this. I don't see much room for the Colts to find a path to victory here, just because the Lions are playing so good. But then again, any given Sunday, and Anthony Richardson did look kind of strong last week.
Well, Richardson did put in a performance that he needed more than anything else with the Colts. I mean, he kind of that put Flacco back on the bench for probably another two to 3 games based on what he did. And beating the Jets is something that looks good. It was a nice win. It was a nice win, but he played well. He despite the kind of questions I have about his his health, etc. He put his body out there and he ran the ball. But he made plays when they needed to be made, and he did exactly what he needed to do with that offense. So, the Colts are probably trending in the right direction in that regard. I mean, their record is 5-6, so they're barely breathing in that division. But like you said, the Lions have beaten AFC South teams 130-49 this season. I mean, we've talked every week about how much we love this Lions team and how great they are. Motor City Dan Campbell, MCDC, just an absolute force of nature. Everybody loves his nature. Everybody loves his demeanor. And the team is just stacked from top to bottom. The only thing I will say is that, I do like the Colts running game, their ability to disrupt what the Lions do. I like Taylor. I like the fact that it's at home. I think they might get a little bump from that. But when you kind of break it all down, I think, that the Lions have got too much. Will it be a letdown not a letdown, but will they kind of take the foot off the gas after last weekend when it was so easy against the Jags when they had 600 plus yards of offense? And will they kind of, look past this game to other bigger wins in the division? That might be a problem, but or might be an issue. But again, like the first game, like the Bucks game with the Giants, I can see this being fairly competitive late into the third quarter, because I think the Colts have enough. Players like Josh Downs and Pierce, they've been nice additions and nice kind of weapons for the Colts this year. The Colts offense or the Colts defense I worry about, especially with everything that the Lions have. We know all the players they have at their disposal. But that Lions secondary is just phenomenal with Kirby, Brian Branch, Terry and Arnold. And I think that's what's going to keep the Colts from getting into the red zone too much. I think the Lions are going to blow it up in the fourth quarter. I just think that they're just going to impose the will. The Colts will keep it fairly handy up until then, but you can't. There's only so many times you push the wall back until it breaks through. So we all know the Lions, what they can do, what the points they can put up. I don't think they'll put up close to what they put up against the Jags, but probably a low 30, mid 30 point. I wouldn't be surprised, and they'll probably win out by. I think the line is -7.5. Probably 10, 12 points to win by.
Yeah, I agree with that analysis there. I find it particularly interesting when you look at Anthony Richardson's performance last week against the Jets. He averaged 9.1 yards per attempt, which is a pretty good return. And that is an Anthony Richardson type of performance, because all of the passes he attempts generally tend to be that deeper type of pass. When we'll talk about it later on, we compare it to, for example, what Tua Tagovailoa is doing now at the Dolphins, when a lot of the things they're trying is 4, 5, 6 yards. When Anthony Richardson tries to do something, he tries to go for chunk plays, he tries to look for his X-factor receivers. And I think against the Jets, that was a tactic that worked. Against the Lions, I think because of that secondary and because of the ability to read things better, it actually might make him more susceptible to giving over turnovers. And then you look at what Detroit is putting up. I mean, they're a team that, Jared Goff has only taken 1 sack in 3 games. They've scored 24 points or more in the last 7. Amon-Ra St. Brown has scored a touchdown in each of the last 8 games. All 11 passes thrown in his direction, he caught over 161 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. And then you look at what the running backs are doing as well. They're easily most weeks averaging 5, 6, 7 yards per carry. It's just an exceptionally broad base on which to build a team. You're not relying on 1 or 2 players. There's a lot of talent across the board. And look, I definitely think the Colts are going to give them a much, much tougher challenge than the Titans and the Jags have. I don't think anybody is expecting anything different. But when you're playing, when you look at how 2 quarterbacks control the ball and how the 2 offenses control the ball, I can see Anthony Richardson trying too hard and giving the ball away in crucial moments in a way that I don't see happening with Detroit. So yeah, I think Detroit by 12, 14 points, even at the most, isn't beyond bounds. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll side with the boat. I think the Lions will win. It strikes me that kind of game where, and I think Kieran's alluded to, that the Colts will hang around, play really well, but ultimately it'll come down to the fourth quarter and Richardson will have to make plays, and that's where I think Branch and Arnold will come into their own, because I can see him getting picked off a couple of times, not because he's thrown ill-advised pass. I think he'll have an aggressive nature about, because he'll have to go chase the game, and that ultimately will just lead to the Lions pulling away. I think the Lions by 10, give or take, as well. So Lions for me as well.
Well, I mentioned Miami, so I might as well shoot into this weekend's matchup between the New England Patriots and the Miami Dolphins in Miami Gardens. This is a part of the world where when the Patriots have traveled, they have generally found it difficult. Even back to Tom Brady's days, all of the AFC East opponents, the Dolphins, and playing away to the Dolphins was always one where the Patriots found tricky. When you combine that with the way that things are going this season, the Dolphins are coming into the 7-point favorites, Brian, and I think that is a fair reflection of where both of these teams are moving right now. You have the Dolphins, who I think are rejuvenated by Tua Tagovailoa coming back, versus the Patriots team, who, as much as Drake May is gathering a lot of favor, they're a team with whom there's still a lot of work needed.
Yeah, you said Miami Garden. This is a savage garden type of game about it for me, because I think the Niners are going to be out for the Patriots on Sunday, Shane. Fortunately for you, because something strikes me about this Dolphins team right now, and I know they haven't beaten anyone in great shakes, but you could argue the Rams are a decent side. They rebounded well last week and beat the Patriots. And then they go and beat the Raiders, and it took a while for them to get going. But once they did, I mean, they comprehensively won the game in the end late on last week. If they get past this, I know I'm jumping ahead. If they've got the Thanksgiving game against the Packers, and if they were to find a way to win that game, they've got the Jets twice, and they got a nice run in. And I can understand why Tyreek Hill said a couple of weeks ago, we can go on a run and can still make the playoffs, and that kind of strikes me as where they're at. I think this is a too big an ask for this Patriots team right now. Like, the Patriots are playing well within their own right. They played tough last weekend against the Rams. Drake May is continuing the development, and ultimately this season is always going to be about where they are come the end of the season with Drake May. But ultimately, you don't have enough playmakers to get it done. And I find a situation that when the Dolphins are on track, they can go toe to toe with anybody and put up huge numbers. And I could see a situation where they're putting up 30 points on this Patriots team. I just don't see a scenario where this defense can slow them down as well as they can play all their day. I think Tua's got something about him again, and he's got all the weapons. And it was kind of a slower game from the run game last week. Most certainly never really got going. I could see that kind of changing this week as the weeks move on. I think the Dolphins, what were we saying, 7 points handicap with Quimby? Like, this strikes me as a 14-17 type of victory for the Dolphins. Shane, I'm sorry, I think this is one of the comprehensive ones for the weekend for me.
I actually think the Dolphins will win by 7 points or more at least. I'll sort of put my pick out first before I give my reasons why. But I think there's a possibility of a lot more scores happening here. I don't trust either of these defenses to take control of any aspect of the game. I'd probably trust Miami's defense more the later we get into the fourth quarter. And I think that Miami defense has been the base on which a lot of their good performances have been built on, including when these two teams played against each other in Foxborough in early October. The Patriots held at 10 points now. Granted, the Patriots offense isn't exactly the easiest to defend against, but I look at what's going on offense. Now, Drake May, it must be said, everyone's saying, oh, he's great because he's able to extend plays. He pulled out that fantastic passing touchdown against Tennessee the other week. Against Chicago, he managed to come out with a win on a day we wasn't playing fantastically well. Last week against the Rams, he put up a lot more points, scored a couple of touchdowns. Look strong, but he does throw picks, and he does give the ball away a lot. And look, we're very early into his development, and I think that's the reason why no one's kind of dumping on him for that. It's not like there's any expectation on him. He's exceeding the expectations because the team as a general has had very low expectations. And again, you look at what he's building on a team. He's struggling to find an offensive line who can properly protect him. He's had to extend plays using his feet because defenders have put a lot of pressure on him. And when it comes to how wide receivers have been playing for him, I just don't see too many guys that he can properly trust week in, week out. I don't see somebody that he's yet to build a rapport with. And when we look at what's going on with Tua Tagovailoa in Miami, since he's come back, I think you actually see them trying less to go for those big X factor type plays to Waddle and Hill. We remember during their times last season when they were beating the SH1T out of the sub 500 teams, scoring 70 points over Denver. They were constantly trying these deep balls to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They're not doing that so much anymore. I think they're being a bit more conservative and actually trying to get a bit more efficiency out of all the plays that they're trying. And when you look at what facing against that Patriots defense, that matches up well because those deep balls will actually give Patriots cornerbacks a chance to pick things off, the chance to shut things down. Whereas if you try to keep the passes away from Christian Gonzalez, for example, you give Tyreek Hill more room to work. And I think for that reason, the Dolphins are going to come to this particularly strong. I understand the point in the Dolphins' run game that they can be strong, but they're not always consistent. But I think that the Dolphins are favorites because they are just fundamentally a better team. This is a divisional rival, and who knows what kind of upsets can come out. But yeah, I think Dolphins by 7 and a 24 to 17 game, it doesn't look beyond the realms of possibility to me, especially considering the Patriots, for example, struggle to score over 23 points, and the Dolphins defense usually score 27 or more. Kieran, what do you think?
Yeah, pretty much what you said just there. The Pats just struggle to score points. Tua coming back to that team, it's a totally different team. Totally different team. Everybody's, everyone's getting the ball now, but the real difference is a Shane running the ball, and that's going to be the issue for me with the Pats. So again, like you said, probably a 7 to 10 point win for the Dolphins.
So just one point before I move on, I was just looking up PFF, who has said that the strength of schedule to date that the Dolphins have faced is 31st of 32, whereas strength of schedule remaining is 17. So maybe when it comes to looking ahead to try and battle for that playoff space, that run could be tougher than we think, Brian. But hey, there's a pretty good starting block by trying to beat the Patriots. But we're going to move on now to doing a couple of quick hits before we move on to our second pick. And we were talking a little bit earlier about the AFC South and how the Lions have definitely dispatched those guys pretty easily. We see an AFC South matchup this week. It's a battle of Houston almost between the Tennessee Titans, formerly the Houston Oilers back in the days, who are traveling to place against the Houston Texans. I think this is probably a one-sided affair. I don't rate the Titans. I do rate the Texans. Now, in fairness, we've seen this a couple of times before where we expect the Texans to try and take control of these games, and they only come out by maybe one-score wins. I think this is a game where the Texans can come out by winning by at least 14 points. Brian?
There's a reason why it's in the quick hit section, Shane, because for me, this is, again, another game that should be a comprehensive victory this weekend. We saw the Texans Monday night against a struggling Cowboys team on the road, 24-10. This is, again, that type of scenario for me. Titans are way off against this team. This is a big win for me this Sunday for the Texans, who thankfully got back on track.
Another win for the Texans, Kieran?
Nico Collins, CJ Stroud. Yeah, it's going to be a Texans win.
We move on to another divisional matchup, this time between the Washington Commanders and the Dallas Cowboys. The good news for Cowboys fans, this one is not an AT&T Stadium, a place where Katie Taylor has won more times than Dallas Cowboys in 2024. That's a fun fact for you. This time, this is in Landover, Maryland, where Dallas face Washington. A team, by the way, who have lost the last two. They certainly got their high when they beat the Bears a couple weeks ago and ended up beating the Giants the following week. But they've since lost by close to the Steelers and then lost in another divisional matchup against the Eagles. But I think this time when they face against the Cowboys, there is nothing really to like about what Dallas are putting up. And the Commanders still want to make sure that they are in the race for the NFC wildcard spots at least. So for me, I think the Commanders by at least a field goal, if not more. Brian?
Well, they say the roof is caving in on Jerry Jones, but it certainly was on Monday with falling parts of the stage. Everything's all wrong in Dallas at the moment. I wouldn't be over concerned about the fact that the Commanders have lost 2 games in a row, because anybody who watched that game last Thursday night against the Eagles pulled away in the fourth quarter. The Commanders had opportunities in that game to put a comprehensive lead, and they just never got it. They never got it done, and then they let the game slip. The score for me didn't do a true reflection of how well the Commanders played. Commanders are need a bounce back game. This is perfect for them. It's Commanders for me.
Do you see it similar, Kieran, or does Dallas have a route back to victory here?
Yeah, I was thinking about this game, and you look to teams and look at the matchups and where there might be an upset, but you just can't see it. The Dallas Cowboys are putrid right now. I mean, everybody knows all they have is CeeDee Lamb. The rest of the scouting, or the rest of the team they're not up to it. Even the O-line, which used to be good for them, but I can't see any way that the Cowboys put up any kind of a matchup against the Washington team. So, yep, I'll take the Commanders probably by 10. Again, one of those teams where they won't blow them out. Daniels has struggled a little bit offensively the last month. The shine has come off those early few games, but they got way more in the tank than the Cowboys.
Well, I think we all trust Washington to take command of that one. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with Vikings at Bears after this. Welcome back into the Irish NFL show preview of NFL's Week 12 action. That break brought to you there by Buskers on the Ball, which has €6 points every Sunday from 6 o'clock as Red Zone is on. And Brian, we're thinking last week, if you were watching as a Bears fan their matchup against the Packers last week, you must have scored a lot of €6 points, probably in frustration at how that game ended. A blocked field goal stopped them from getting a crucial divisional win there, facing against another divisional rival this time as the Minnesota Vikings rock into Soldier Field. You can see how the way this narrative will go, depending on what way this matchup comes out. It could be the Bears' revival and their challenge to try and stay relevant in NFC North against a Vikings team where if they lose, people might start considering them frauds. Seeing that they are currently sitting at 8-2. What way do you see this one going?
It's amazing what's happened now. This is an NFL season like the winner in a way, because the Bears were coming off the London game 4-2 and everything was looking so rosy, and they were a split second away from going 5-2, and literally the rails, it's all the rails since. And it's amazing how one particular play in one game can literally change the whole structure of a team and how their thought process is, and the enormity of weeks beyond where the impact is still being felt by the team. Obviously, they relieved their offensive coordinator thereafter. Look, they played very well last week. I thought this was a game which I did think they'd play better. I did select the Packers. I think by and large we all felt the Packers would do enough. But it's one that, again, the Bears fans will just look back on and say, this is the torture that is being a Chicago Bears fan, because no matter how many times you get yourself into a situation to win a game, you just can't get over the line. This game, for me, is probably the more difficult game in a way, because the Packers, I wouldn't say they're a softer defense, but we're going up against a Brian Flores defense. And once the Bears kind of, as well as just their play plan last week, and we spoke about it on Monday, the quickness of getting the ball out by Caleb Williams. Brian Flores will have quickly got hold of that tape and reacted to that this week and worked with the Vikings defense to get them ready for this. The Vikings defense, which in secondary particularly, hasn't been great of late. We saw last weekend that big bomb touchdown from Will Levis, and there was other opportunities in the game. A better quarterback would have got the job done against this Vikings team. So I think there is opportunities for the Bears to get some points on the board and make some big explosive plays. But ultimately, for me, I think the same could come down to who runs the ball more effectively. And Aaron Jones this season, for me, has been one of the better pickups. For a guy who was released by the Packers and signed within the division, I think he's the kind of guy that will lead this team to victory on Sunday. 3.9 with Quinbet, it's a fair reflection. I think this is a tight game, and ultimately the Bears come up short again, and it'll be another frustration week leading into Thanksgiving where they go up against the mighty Lions.
Kieran, I look at this matchup mainly between that Brian Flores defense, which we know is incredibly aggressive, and what the Bears have on offense. They have an offensive line and a quarterback who I think spends too long with the ball in hand. You saw that by the fact that they got sacked 9 times by the Patriots a couple of weeks ago when New England faced against them. Considering what Flores will throw at them, they will throw the kitchen sink at a rookie quarterback. And considering that I don't fully trust the Caleb Williams to distribute the ball in the way they should do, surely this is a game where the Bears have very little chance to score points.
Well, I'm going to go the opposite tack. I think the football gods are going to smile on the Bears this week. I think they've had so much misfortune and so many mishits and misfires so far this season. I think they do a huge game at home. I like what Thomas Brand did last week. He brought in a real quick passing game, and he saw the issues that Caleb was having. You know, that line collapsing quickly, get rid of the ball quickly, release the ball. So the Bears have brought that into the playbook. I think, I can see a nice game from the running backs too. I can see a DeAndre Swift kind of breakout game. I think the Bears, everything that's been going on, all the talk, all the Eberflus talk, everything that's going on with all the misfortune, I think with the Vikings team that's coming in, I watched the Vikings against the Jaguars a couple of weeks ago, and they were awful on offense. And Darnold hasn't been the same the last 4 or 5 weeks. He's struggled a lot. He's turned the ball over, quite a lot the last probably 4 to 5 weeks, and they're not the same as they were earlier. The defense started off like a house on fire. Defense, you got rock stars back there, but they haven't been great the last couple of weeks either. I can see this is one of those games that I can see an upset coming. I can see the Soldier Field crowd, colder weather, real battle in the NFC North, and I can see both teams going at it. But I can see the Bears coming out. I think Caleb, this has all been part of his learning. The phrase they use, maturation phase. This is all part of his learning curve, and I think this is going to be one of those days that the football gods smile on them, and I think they're going to pull out a win. I like they were unlucky. We can all say they were unlucky to lose last week, but the adjustments that Brown has made with the on the offense, I think is gonna work out for him this week. The Vikings not able to put up a huge amount of points, the last 4 to 5 weeks. So with those things added in, something tells me the Bears are going to put in a big performance and put a stay of execution on Eberflus for at least another week or two. Despite the Vikings defense that love to blitz, I can just see the fact that they're getting rid of that ball quicker. That's going to help the Bears offense. And I can see a Bears. I'm not going to say they're going to win by field goal, but by as time expires, but I can see the Bears winning this. So I'm going to pick the Bears.
I think if the Bears block the Vikings winning field goal, I think it would be nice to get a justice, but also more kicking pain for a Minnesota team who are known for kicking pain over the years. I have to say, I can see this game going very close. Well, what worries me from a Minnesota point of view is sometimes the running game can be a little bit inconsistent. I think particularly in short yardage situations when they're trying to get that extra 2, 3, 4 yards to get over the line, they rely a lot on Sam Darnold's ability. And I think that Sam Darnold hasn't taken too much of a step back. I think that the workload he's been asked to do is more and more against a Chicago team who, as you were saying, they're going to probably be able to produce more on offense. I have to say, though, I am going for Minnesota to get the win here, probably by 4 or 5 points. Not a huge amount, but I just trust the Vikings to score more points the further we get into the game. Once we get into the second half, I just think that is where Minnesota will go in. But we'll move on now to a matchup which has an 11-point spread according to QuinnBet, the Kansas City Chiefs at the Carolina Panthers. Unusual that we're talking about this matchup, though, because Chiefs obviously reigning Super Bowl champions against Panthers, reigning recipients of the #1 pick, which obviously got traded to the Bears, but they were the worst team in the NFL. Yet the Panthers are coming into this after winning the last 2 games, and the Chiefs lost for the first time last week. Does that mean that the Panthers have a chance to win? I think there's a very, very small chance that the Panthers have to win. It's the simple fact that, in that 2-game winning streak that the Panthers had before going into the bye week, that was against the New Orleans Saints at home. And they got it, but maybe slightly fortunate, but still managed to get a win in Germany against the New York Giants. That is nothing compared to playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. That is a bit like, I don't know, it's a bit like playing, you're used to playing checkers and now you're trying to play against chess master from Russia or something like this. What the Chiefs are going to throw up in that. But what's even more important now from the Chiefs' point of view is the fact that they've lost last week. Now, of course, that was against the Bills. If that one loss that the Chiefs had early in the season a couple of weeks ago, or may happen a couple of weeks ago, you could look at this and you could use that great phrase with the Irish rugby fraternity are using now whenever they refer to a team that they're expected to beat, banana skin. I don't know if anybody's been keeping an eye on. Every time Ireland talk about Fiji, they always talk about Fiji potentially being banana skin. And that is code for, we're going to hockey these guys by about 21 points. And I look at some of the stuff that Kansas City is writing about Carolina this week. And what do I see? The phrase banana skin thrown up. So I think people in Kansas City are confident that they're going to hockey the Carolina Panthers by roughly 20 points. Now, can the Panthers get a couple of turnovers on Patrick Mahomes and keep things tight in certain points of the game? Maybe. Is there a path for the Panthers to win in any given Sunday scenario if Patrick Mahomes somehow completely loses the plot? Maybe. What are the chances that are happening? Effectively none. Kieran, I don't really think there's too much more to say on this matchup. I think everyone is expecting the Chiefs to come out and win big on this one.
Yeah, I mean the Panthers coming back from a bye, rested, feeling good after that. They're on a win streak, but this Kansas City Chiefs team is a whole different beast. Despite their difficulty to put up a lot of points, I don't think there's going to be much problem there. Mahomes has recorded 245 plus passing yards in 16 of the last 17 Chiefs games following a loss. So he's going to be feeling some type of way about that, despite the fact that he didn't, he wasn't overly upset about losing that unbeaten record. He is. He's a massive competitor. He's a winner, and that didn't sit well with him. So it's going to be one of those games where the Panthers, the matchup is it's not comparable. I mean, Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. You're looking at 2 teams that are, they're not similar. And, Canales is his job is not under threat. So he's got nothing much to lose in this, but it's a game that the Panthers aren't expected to win. They might keep it competitive, but I don't think anyone thinks the Chiefs are going to lose this game, despite the fact that Kansas City's with the Cowboys are the only team that hasn't got a run of more than 20 yards by a running back, which is an incredible stat when you think the team is 9-1. All said, despite the fact that Kelsey hasn't been great, you still have D-Hop, you still have Kareem Hunt, and you still have Patrick Mahomes. You're going into Charlotte against a Panthers team, which is not great, beat a Giants team, which is not great. It could be 14, could be 17. It's going to be a pretty easy win for the Chiefs.
This is only on the list because the Chiefs lost last week. They should have been in the quick bits or the quick bites or whatever you want to call it. There won't be any biting of the Chiefs this weekend. It's Chiefs all day long. A comprehensive victory.
We're going to move on to the 9 o'clock window now. I think one of the most interesting and consequential games of this weekend is the Arizona Cardinals travel to the Seattle Seahawks. I think I find this one particularly interesting personally because there was a time I was considering flying over to watch this game with a couple of friends of mine, one who is a Seahawks fan, and various reasons why we didn't go. One of the reasons we were saying, looking ahead to the season, is not really sure how much of a game this is. It's probably going to be a battle between two teams who will be fighting for maybe third place in the division and might be already out of playoff contention. But that is not how things are working out. The Cardinals come into this at 6-4. The Seahawks, one of the group of three in the NFC West, who are at 5-5. I think this is a really interesting matchup. And I've gone over and back on this because there's so many little things which could turn the tide, Brian. And I'm just really not sure which of these two teams has the bigger X factor that could decide it. Because considering it is in Seattle, maybe it's the home crowd factor. Maybe it's the fact that the Cardinals are coming into this after winning the last 4 games before going on a bye week. It is very difficult to read what might actually happen here, Brian.
I know there's big games this weekend, such as your Ravens, Chargers. You've got your Sunday night football and so forth. For me, this is the game of the weekend. This is the one because there's so many storylines as to how this could all tie in. Bear in mind that the Niners are going to play at the same time in Lambeau. If the Niners are not to get out of Lambeau with a victory and the Cardinals win, all of a sudden they're 2 games behind against a team that have already beaten them. And they play each other in the last game of the season. I think we've all agreed on Monday that it's very unlikely there's a second team coming out of the division because of the nature of what's ahead for the other teams that are sitting in the wild card spots. This is a huge game. This really is. And you're right. There's so many scenarios here. If the Seahawks were to win, bearing in mind they won last weekend, they take over leadership of the division. It's far removed from a team that were 3-0, but we recognise they haven't played anybody of note. And the Cardinals are coming off a bye week. You'd expect them to be ready to go. But I'm going to side with the Seahawks in this game. I have been impressed with the Cardinals. I have selected them over the course of the last few weeks, and they're on a nice little run. But something for me we saw on the other side of the Seahawks last week, and I think we saw a team that were actually playing for the head coach. And I know it's a new head coach, and you could say they've been playing for him over the course of the season. But I think they're fully starting to get the grips with what's expected of this team defensively. And we saw them hold, let's just say, a 49ers offense right now that isn't at the level which we saw last year. So it's going to be a tough game trying to manage Kyler Murray. If he gets out to the perimeter, he's so many weapons in this team now. James Conner's a huge threat in the run game. You've obviously got Marvin Harrison. And there's some other nice little bits to the team. Obviously, you got McBride and tight end. So they are developing a nice team offensively. And I know they struggled at home this season. They've lost some games. They lost to the Giants. They lost to the Rams. But something tells me this weekend we're going to see the Seahawks bounce back and really put in a stellar performance. They're going to put a mark down that they are right now a team that can be seriously considered as a team that could win this division. For me, this run of the Cardinals comes to an end on Sunday, and the Seahawks find a way to get a victory.
I have to say I look at it differently because I asked myself a question during the week. A couple of shows to listen to asked that if you could rank the NFC West teams from first to fourth, where do you put them? And I think in that pile, I put the Cardinals first and the Seahawks fourth. And there is very little in between that. But there's a couple of things which sway me in that direction. Firstly, I think Kyler Murray, and we understand there are still question marks about his character, but in terms of his ability to perform, I think he's been performing exceptionally well. He's completing 70% of the passes he's throwing. He knows when to run. He knows when to pass. I think he's been able to run an offense exceptionally well. And you look at the offensive weapons that they have. We talk all the time about the 49ers being this team with weapons, being this team that Brock Purdy has so many different options. But you look at what the Cardinals have. They've got Trey McBride, who is one of the better tight ends in the league, not a person who drops balls, somebody who knows how to block, not a person who fumbles the ball, a person who can get yards after catch. Marvin Harrison Jr. is having a pretty strong rookie season. Whenever he's been getting targeted, he's been able to get those bigger type of chunk plays. And you look at the likes of Wilson and Connor. Connor's been averaging 70 yards per run as well, and been able to pass catch. And the defense has been able to hold up against some pretty strong enough teams as well. I mean, they've been one of the few teams been able to hold the Lions to under 21 points. Only hold them to 20. They managed to beat the Chargers a couple of weeks ago. They've been able to match up well on a couple of things. But at the same time, you look at what the Seahawks have coming in. We've mentioned before how Geno Smith can really fire into the fourth quarter. I think DK Metcalf is becoming an exceptional wide receiver to throw to. We saw that with a couple of the chunk plays that he got against the 49ers last week. And you look at just some other things happening. What's going to be the difference here? And I really think that this is going to be a game where the team that manages to control the deep passes is going to get the edge here. And we saw the Seahawks are well able to do that. They've done it in a couple of games this year. They've done it against the Rams. They've done it against the 49ers, as we mentioned. They know that when the game is in the mixer, as they say in hurling circles, that they know when to lob it up and when to manage to get the chunk plays that they need. That said, though, I'm going with the Cardinals here because I just think that they have the better talent to be able to control the game from early on. I know that the Seattle factor, the 12s factor, is going to be huge. They're going to bring up a big atmosphere, and the fact that they're divisional rivals is going to amp that up a bit, and because of what the game has at stake. But I just think that I don't fully trust what the Seattle can do defensively to stop the passing game and to stop the scrambling game in particular that the Cardinals are going to throw at them. The Seattle offense has been consistent enough in that it's consistently above average and find ways to control situations. They're better at situational football than they are at racking up the stats. It's the Seattle defense which has been very inconsistent the longer we go throughout the season. And considering the consistency the Cardinals offense has been showing the last few weeks, I think they might just about have the edge here. I'm not fully confident in that. I agree with you, Brian. This is probably one of, if not the game of the weekend. I'm glad it's being shown at a time that we can watch it here in Ireland at roughly 9 o'clock. And I'm looking forward to keeping it on my second screen. But I just think the Cardinals might have enough to put it over the line. Kieran.
Yeah, this is probably one of the better matchups of the weekend. I like this to be a nice close game. I got to stick with Seattle, though, after last week. I think they've turned a corner. That was a huge statement win against San Francisco, and that eliminated a lot of the doubting people who were like, well, they can't really get a run going. But despite the fact that the Cards have been on a bit of a tear lately, I think it'll be a close one, really good game. But I think the Seahawks will pull this one out.
Well, we are split there, but I'm very much looking forward to watching that one. Another Western battle is the battle between the Denver Broncos, who travel to face the Las Vegas Raiders, also in the late window. It's an interesting one. Remember we were talking about the Dolphins last season? They were a team who always knew when to beat the teams it should do, but when they came against tough teams, they couldn't get it done. You look at Denver's record so far; they are 5-0 against teams that are sub 500, but 1-5 against teams that are over 500. That one, though, being Denver's big win against the Atlanta Falcons last week. And Kieran, when you look at what's going on here, the Raiders are coming in after losing 6 now. Mind you, they still managed to put together some decent enough drives in the first half against Miami last week. Against a Denver team, though, who, as you mentioned on Monday, are sort of growing from strength to strength. It is a divisional matchup, though. Anything can happen. These two teams have a long history of hating each other. That might bring something, a different kind of spark. So when the Broncos clash against the Raiders, what do you think is going to be the difference maker?
Yeah, well, this ain't the 80s, and this ain't the black hole in Oakland. It's not a scary place to go. The Allegiant is a luxury box, so it's that whole aura is gone right now. Plus, they're in a different state and stadium. The Raiders are putrid. They really are. They can't do anything. They got 0 run game. Madison is awful on the ground. Zamir White, they can't. They'll have 14 carries for 17 yards. The only bright spark for the Raiders is Brock Bowers. That's really all they got going on. Plus Max, we got Max Crosby on defense, but Antonio Pierce, it's a tough gig for him. I mean, you see the shots of him on the sideline. He's thrown his eyes to the heavens after another turnover. Minshew is in there really because there's nobody else that can throw the ball, and he's as Eamon Dunphy would say, he's no great shakes. He's not exactly somebody who's going to carry your team. Similar to the Chiefs game, I can't see any way that the Raiders put up any kind of contest. This Broncos team is just surprised everybody. I mean, putting up 38 points on the Falcons, but there's going to be a huge amount of Broncos fans in Vegas. They're going to turn that stadium blue and orange. Raiders fans, there's not much to bring them to the stadium. There's not much to watch, to enjoy. I can see the Broncos piling on in this game too. I can see a lot of Bo Nix running the ball. This defense is not going to be able to stop him. He's too fast for Crosby by himself can't do the whole gig. He's too fast. he's got another thing that people don't really talk about with the Broncos. Yes, the defense is great, Pat Surtain and those guys, but the O-line for the Broncos, McGlinchey, Garrett Bowles, those guys, that's probably the best O-line of the whole league that nobody talks about that much. And that's the difference. I mean, you look at Caleb at Chicago, Drake May probably hasn't got the greatest O-line up in New England, but Bo Nix walked into a team with a phenomenal O-line, and that's been a huge part of his development and his success. He's got wheels. He'll probably run the ball for 60, 70 yards. He'll throw for 200 plus. I don't see any way that the Raiders keep it close. I don't think it's going to be competitive at all. This Broncos team is way too good. Sean Payton loves running. He loves running the score up. I don't think he's going to run the score up, but he's going to make sure that they know that the Broncos were in town. So, this is going to be an easy win for the Bronx.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my views on this short and sweet because I think you've summed up everything pretty nicely. I think the Broncos are a team moving in the right direction, and the Raiders aren't. And for the Raiders to have a chance, you need Nix, Williams, Sutton, and probably half the defense to have a dud day, and that's just not going to happen. They're not all going to have a bad day and give the Raiders, who are after losing the last 6 games, a chance to run in. Their only real strength is the fact that against the run game, they're not too bad. So, look. Denver are going to win this. I think it really is only a case by how much. Raiders might be able to keep it close enough. Brian.
Antonio Pierce, we're talking about Eamon Dunphy. Antonio Pierce reminded me of Mick McCarthy last weekend. He kept taking notes in his notepad before halftime. I don't know what he was actually writing in there. Similar to when Mick McCarthy used to do something similar on the sideline.
He's in Vegas. He's taking down bets. It's one big betting slip. Maybe that was it.
Yeah, well, he's probably trying to write his P45 to get out of Dodge and get out of town, because I'm not entirely sure he'll be still the head coach come the end of the season. I think he's bitten off too much than he can chew there. But the Broncos are going in the right direction, and Kieran called it out, and I'm doubling down essentially on what he said. This stage was going to be full of Broncos fans. The one thing Broncos do when they're playing well, they travel well, and they're going to take this over like a home stadium. We've been to the stadium; it's not the most daunting stadium to go into. It's going to be a nice, enjoyable afternoon for Broncos fans in Vegas. They're going to win, a comfortable win for me.
All right, we're going to take one final quick break before we look at the final 3 matchups in this weekend, including the 2 primetime games and the matchup between the 49ers and the Packers. Welcome back into the Irish NFL Show Week 12 preview. We'll do a quick shout out, by the way, to the Irish 49ers fans who are meeting up again in Buskers on the Ball this week as the 49ers face against the Green Bay Packers. We're hoping you guys, hoping you guys definitely have a close game. I think a lot of those matchups have ended in heartbreak for 49ers fans over the years. I think there is a sense that there is somehow a curse of watch parties floating around for a lot of Irish fans watching their teams play. But when you're facing against a Packers team, we saw there's a lot of snow falling in Wisconsin at the moment, which might really add to the spectacle. The Niners, of course, probably come into this with a greater need for a victory, although the Packers are still in a very tough battle to try and not only stay top of try to battle for their division, but stay top of that NFC wildcard pile. So, Brian, there's a lot of factors that could change it here against these two traditional rivals of the NFC. What do you think could be the difference?
Well, I think the curse of the watch party has been lifted in the book because so the Niners won a few weeks ago. I think the Packers had their own watch party last weekend in town, and they also found a way to come out victorious. Both teams really need this game. The 49ers probably do need it slightly more than the Packers, bearing in mind the situation which we just alluded to, that it's unlikely a second team comes out of the division. Neither offense for me are playing at the level in which we would have thought. I think the Packers got over the line last weekend. We saw Jordan loves numbers, and I spoke to Packers fans today, and he rightly called out, okay, fine, Watson came up with a few big plays, and maybe that distorts the numbers, but you still got to make those big plays. You still got to be an aggressive nature. But in this game on Sunday, we're probably not going to see many explosive plays, and that's down to the fact that the weather, if anyone's seen on social today, looks like it's going to be one of those real snowstorm type of games, similar to what we saw in the playoffs 4 or 5 years ago when the 49ers went in the divisional round and knocked off the Packers-led Aaron Rodgers at the time. I'm going to side with the Packers in this game. I think the upside of their offense and their run game probably will do enough to get the victory. I think Josh Jacobs could be more effective than a 49ers team right now that just can't seem to get out of their own way in terms of running the ball effectively. Like Mason was brought in last weekend to kind of relieve McCaffrey of his duties sometimes because they just weren't getting the same snap out of him in terms of what we've seen in the past. Maybe this is his third game back, and maybe we see a more effective Christian McCaffrey. But right now, I'm going to trust the Packers at home. I think defensively they might have bit more. I'm not entirely sure what the health of Bosa is. We saw him struggle with the hip injury last week. If he's not playing at full tilt, I think the Packers can find ways to get points on the board. I'm going to go with the Packers to win this game. I think it'll be a tight one. I think the line is reflective of what we all expect, which is a tight one. It's 2.5 point favourites for the Packers. I think they'll win by a field goal.
Yeah, Kieran, we were talking about earlier about the way that your record, you are what your record says you are. The fact that the Niners probably showed themselves to be inconsistent, and the Packers are sitting at 7-3. Probably showed themselves to be a decent team, with all maybe not quite the finished article when it comes to the Super Bowl conversation. But the fact that the Packers are more in a Super Bowl conversation, the 49ers are in a scrap for the division, probably shows that they are coming in this with greater control of their fundamentals. So, do you see the 49ers being able to come in and probably causing what, according to our line, would be an upset here?
Well, I think, to echo a lot of what Brian said, this is two offenses that are not really firing on all cylinders the last couple of weeks. I don't like what's going on with the defense with San Francisco. I mean, right now it's Fred Warner and a whole bunch of other guys. I don't think he's been getting the support that he needs. I think it's been tough sledding, just like the offense. They're missing Ayuk something fierce. I mean, we talked earlier in the season about how much McCaffrey, was a factor, but missing Ayuk, it's put a lot of pressure on Debo. Debo's getting double covered a lot. And Purdy, if you watch closely the game last week against Seattle were playing man a lot, and it was really messing Purdy's rhythm up. It was really making him scramble a lot. There was nobody open, there was nobody available, and that's what led to him scrambling. I can see that the Packers doing a lot of that again this week and taking a page from their playbook and just making Purdy scramble a lot and get him out and just moving around a lot, because he's not been as effective throwing the ball as he has been last year. And for me, it's going to be another close matchup. I think there's not going to be a lot in this. I'm not sure how much the weather is going to be a factor. I looked ahead. It may be okay that they may escape the snow this weekend. But that's today. That could change a lot. There's a lot of crazy weather going on over here. But I just think the way that the Niners have been so inconsistent, and that loss to Seattle is kind of emblematic of it. We keep saying it. This is not the same Niners team. They don't have that aura. They don't have that kind of, that vibe I haven't even seen them bring the boombox out this year that they used to bring out last year. I haven't even seen that. Maybe they're doing it, but I haven't seen much of it. So it's definitely not the same swagger. Shanahan looks 5 years older than he did last year. We talk about the window. Is the window closing? Players are going to be moving on after next season. So, how much is left in the tank for this Niners team? And is this a game that they're going to be able to get over the hill? I don't think so. I think the Packers are going to take this. I like Dobbs. Christian Watson had a huge game last week. Even Jaden Reed. I think that the weapons are fresher. A lot of injuries with the Niners right now. Who's fully fit? Is Purdy fit? Is he scrambling around because he's not 100%? We know about Bosa. We obviously know about McCaffrey. So I think with that said, a lot of question marks about the Niners' health going into a tough place to play. I like the Packers in this one.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think the Packers are going to win this one, simply because if you look at, I've spoken previously about Jordan Love's a bit sort of tendency to lose control of the ball. But do you trust the 49ers to completely capitalize on that and gain control of momentum? I don't fully, because I'm just not 100% sure in their ability to game plan. Plus, when you talk about, everyone was talking about Purdy as potentially being the great system quarterback a couple of years ago when he came in and all that kind of debate. Well, regardless of his skill or whether it's a system, the longer that system is in place, and the easier the defense is to be able to find ways to read it, limit it, control situations, and find ways to get back into the game. And I think the Packers are a team that defensively are strong enough to do just that and read whatever the Niners are going to try and throw at them from early on. So for me, I think the Packers are going to win this. Don't mean that to sort of put a curse on the watch party and buskers. Who knows? Maybe the fact that we've all backed them might give the 49ers a bit of luck. But when we talk about NFC West, guys, we're talking about the final team in that not slow bicycle race, but I guess hunt for the top of that division. That is the LA Rams, who are playing on Sunday Night Football as they host the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles coming to this on a 6-game win streak. All the talk from a couple of weeks ago about Nick Sirianni, whether he's having control of the team, that somehow seems to be much quieter when the offense is firing on as many cylinders as it is currently firing on against an LA Rams team who were pretty comprehensive against the Patriots last week, ended up losing the last time they played in prime time against the Dolphins the previous week. The fact they're 5-5 shows their ability to be up and down. But I think the further we go into the season, we've seen this the last couple of years with Sean McVay teams, they tend to get better. They tend to find better ways to use Matt Stafford's abilities, tend to find better ways to use their wide receivers' abilities, to know when to use their X factor and how to use it. But they're facing against an Eagles team who have shown plenty of X factor in the last couple of weeks. As Saquon Barkley is the best running back in the league when it comes to his average yards per game. He averages 113 yards every game, which is a ridiculous statistic. You look at the way Jalen Hurts is playing. We've mentioned a couple of times in this podcast already. He's been passing well. He's been more accurate. He's been able to get rushing touchdowns. They're less reliant on the tush push. He's looking over his field of vision instead of always going for those wide balls. He has changed his game sufficiently to be more efficient. And I think it has definitely worked well for what Philly has put up in the last couple of weeks. And then you look at what their defense has done in 5 of the last 6 games. And they've been able to keep the teams they're playing against to 19 points or under. And they are the 3rd best pass defense in the league when it comes to quarterback ratings that they face against. So you have to say that the LA Rams are coming up against a very, very tough challenge here. But I'm going to back the Rams for a bit of an upset here. And I'll tell you why. I look at the 2 big factors which are going to be difference makers, as in who is going to bring the bigger X factor. Cooper Kupp and his ability to get chunk plays in significant drives at significant points of the game versus whatever Saquon Barkley is going to do. And Saquon Barkley is going to have a good game. I'm not going to deny him that. Plus, the simple matchup between Philadelphia's corners and the Rams wide receivers. And that is very much a strength versus strength matchup. But when we look at what Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua is doing, we look at how the Rams are generally running their game, I just have trust in them to find a way to pull it out. I think this is going to be very close. This could very well be a comeback at the end or a game-winning drive in the 4th quarter from Sean McVay's side. But I just have a way of trusting them to get this matchup right. The Eagles are a better team overall, which is the reason why they are 3-point favorites coming into this. But when it comes to who's going to win this particular matchup, I just trust Sean McVay to have a couple of ideas up his sleeve and to just try and put enough doubts into what Philadelphia are doing so that maybe any kind of disjointment within the camp that we've talked about before, that Nick Sirianni knows that we're not talking about now because he's winning, but we know we're still there because he hasn't gone. That hasn't completely left the building just yet. I just trust the Rams to find some way to unnerve that. It's against the grain. I know the Eagles, it's very difficult to see any way you can probably defeat them. But I rate what the Rams can do on passing offense. Kieran, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go with you. Despite the fact that the Rams are 1-7 in the last 8 games against the Eagles, but both teams start off slow. The Eagles, we all know their first quarter issues and getting points on the board in the first quarter. Half of their offense is Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. That's not a secret. But I just and I saw some footage earlier of Sirianni. In typical Sirianni fashion, he's playing West Coast mid-90s hip-hop at the Eagles facility to get him ready for the trip. That's got Sirianni written all over it. But again, I think this is going to be a letdown game for the Eagles. I just think that the Rams, I like what they're doing, and I've said it earlier in the season, all their real star players and their notable players are coming back from injury. It's looking like a much more complete team now. I think the Eagles are due for a letdown. I think they've been kind of coasting ever since that bye week when they came back and were a totally different team. They've almost been coasting a little bit, similar to how they were, last year when they were just winning games in their sleep. I don't think they're ready for this challenge from the Rams. I think Sean McVay's got a lot of stuff up his sleeve, and he's going to bring out a lot of different reads. You talk about Puka coming back, you talk about Cooper Kupp out there, but again, you got a player out there who may be the equal of Saquon and Kyron Williams. He's good for 100 yards. He's good for a touchdown or two. And the fact that they've got, players like Rose Boom coming back, they got Darius Williams. Braden Fisk and Jared Verse had huge games last week. And those two are starting to get used to the kind of NFL life. Typically college games, the college season, and this is something that may impact Jaden Daniels as well. College season starts to wind down around this time. So players in college are used to, winding down around, late November. But I think that with Fisk and Verse, there's they're finding their flow right now. They're getting their beak wet in the NFL life, and they're starting to adapt to that. So I can see big games from them. I think Saquon's going to be stunted a little bit. I like the Rams defense. I like to slow him down. And again, with Hurts, you never know. I mean, he's not been lights out. Most of his numbers have been with his legs. Very inconsistent throwing the ball, a lot of screens, a lot of thrown out of bounds when there's nothing open. So if you keep Hurts quiet and you're able to contain Saquon, and you let two of the probably the best players in the NFL in Cooper Kupp and Puka get wide and get them open. We saw that run from Cooper last week against the Pats, but I just see a situation where the Rams are able to handle the Eagles. I don't want to call it an upset because I wouldn't class it as an upset, but I think a Rams team kind of similar to last year. This is the time of year when they turned it around last year, went on a run. I just think the fact that their main players are getting healthy again, they're feeling themselves. McVay is you can never discount McVay or what he's got up his sleeve. I just like the Rams in this one, in a close one. Not necessarily the high-scoring game, but I like the Rams in a close one.
Yeah, once the heat dies down in Southern California, the Rams know how to turn the heat up at this time of year. Brian?
I'll go against this. Unfortunately, I think it's an Eagles victory. With all the, I suppose, the grief that Sirianni was getting, he has turned things around quite significantly, and they're playing at another level right now. And I just think the Rams team are good, but they're coming up short against the bigger teams. And I acknowledge some of the rationale as to why they're confident, but I think ultimately come the fourth quarter, I think the Eagles will put away with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley finding ways to get into the end zone. So it's an Eagles victory for me, and they continue to fly, Eagles, fly.
Fly, Eagles, fly. Well, in terms of flying, we'll keep with the birth theme as the Baltimore Ravens fly to Los Angeles to play the Chargers on Monday Night Football. That Sunday night to Monday night little pair, by the way, will be a nice trip. If I'm sure there's a couple of Irish guys maybe flying over to see Sunday Night Football for the Rams and Monday night for the Chargers. But this time it is the Harbour as the Ravens face against the Chargers. And I got to say, Brian, I've been thinking about this game a lot today because I've changed my mind about 3 times as to who I think is going to win it. I think there's a lot that could change, a lot that could really mark it out, because these are 2 fantastic teams. As much as the Cardinals and the Seahawks are probably the game of the week, this is definitely going to be a pretty good spectacle.
Absolutely, yeah. And just to touch on SoFi Stadium, I have been there obviously for the Super Bowl a couple of years back. There's a fantastic casino next door, Shane. I'm sure you'd enjoy your opportunity to go there in a couple of years when the Super Bowl returns to SoFi. Maybe we'll see Baltimore or an LA Chargers team come around to that time and be in the Super Bowl. But this is the makings of a great game on Monday night. Like, the league have got this one so spot on. I know, of course, after I know early on in the season you may have looked at this game and said, is it really going to be what we expect come that time of the season? Because the Chargers were very slow to get going. But they've really bought into what Harbaugh's wants and expects of this team. And rightly now, they're a team that's really challenging for the playoffs. And it strikes me as the kind of game that they really have to get over the line. This is kind of a sample size of where they really are at. And we're talking about Ravens team right now that are, as well as the Ravens are playing, and rightly are expected to be a team that can challenge for the Super Bowl. They're finding ways to lose games that they should be winning. Big games, divisional losses on the road to the Browns. They lose on the road last weekend in Pittsburgh. And now they're going to go on the road against a Chargers team. But I see this game so different to last week. Like, you're on touchdown on Monday, how the Steelers can bring it down to 11 and play football at in a manner in which they want. They bring it down to a level, a dog level, and they find ways to overcome it and beat you. But in this game, this strikes me as a high-scoring game. These played each other, I think it was Monday Night Football last year, and it was a huge scoring game. I think the Chargers came back late after the Ravens got up very early on this game. For me, the Ravens need this more right now than the Chargers. The Chargers are going in a nice manner towards the playoffs, but the Ravens need to get this over the line because they've got aspirations to challenge for that number 1 seed. And right now they're 2 games behind, probably 3 because they've lost to the Chiefs. So I think the Ravens will bounce back. I think Derrick Henry will have a big game, and I think both of the Ravens will come out on top and win the brotherly love game.
Before I give the last word to Kieran, I just want to run through why I was changing my mind so much today, because when we're filling in what our picks are for the graphic that comes out at the weekend, I originally put in Ravens because it was in more of an instinct thing. I thought, okay, they lost an AFC North game. It was a bit of a freak of nature. the Pittsburgh ground there, and they're going to come back there. We're going to see Lamar going back to being efficient and manage to pass at big yards. We're going to see, we're going to see the run game being reignited. We're going to see that defensive line being able to put a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert. But then I just took a step back and had a look at the way the Chargers have been playing recently, and I think like a lot of people are talk about the Chargers in that kind of hardball mold. Oh, the defense has been sorted, and then the offensive line has been sorted. But just look at the skill players and what they've been able to do as well. They're on a 4-game winning streak. They've scored over 26 points in all 4 of them. Justin Herbert had over 275 yards and in each of those games. They Glad McConkey over 120 yards last week. You got the J.K. and Gus Edwards show in the back, and they did the best defense in the league. So much is going right for the Chargers right now, and it's very unusual that we're saying that, considering that we're talking about the Chargers, a team which is known for finding ways to lose games in the way that at the moment the Ravens keep finding ways to lose games that they should be winning, exactly to your point, Brian. So I'm not confident on this. I think the only thing I'm confident in is that there will be a lot of scoring. I don't think this is going to be a team where defense will take control from early on. I think there will be a lot of scoring because both of these teams have the potential to put up a lot of points and to put up a lot of yards. But if I'm going with who I think is going to really make the difference, I'm going to go with the home team that actually might have a little bit of a home factor for probably the first time since the Chargers moved up north to Los Angeles. So, yeah, give me the Chargers. I just think that what the defense has here, and when you look at the fact that Justin Herbert in the past game and what McConkey and a couple of the other wide receivers have been able to do against the fact that is the one big weakness that the Ravens have is being able to defend against the pass game. I just think that gives the Chargers a little bit of an edge here. Kieran, I'm going to pass the final word on to you.
Great game. I wish this was the Thanksgiving game. This would have been a great one to watch while I'm reclining on my couch, stuff on my face. I think this is a game that might be a little too soon for the Chargers. I think this is, despite what I love what's going on there, I think that the culture shift and what's going on with Harbaugh, I think it might be too soon. They got a Ravens team coming in that is a little smarting from the last couple of weeks. I think there's going to be a lot of Derrick Henry, perfect track, nice stadium, nice atmosphere. A lot of Ravens fans going to travel over. I just think it's too soon in the year for a big matchup like this for Harbaugh, and I like the Ravens.
For which Harbaugh?
The Ravens coach Harbaugh.
Yeah.
John as opposed to Jim.
John as opposed to Jim, correct.
All right. Well, that brings us to an end of our NFL Week 12 preview. Our live coverage reconvenes at Monday at 9:00 we will also have our instant reaction podcast available for you in the early hours of Monday morning for anybody to catch up with any of the action. But for now, for everybody listening and everybody tuning in and commenting, thank you very much. And make sure you keep following, liking, subscribing, and telling all of your friends about all the work we do with the Irish NFL Show. We do very much appreciate it.